Hello and welcome back to Tracking Trends. It has been a month since America and Israel started their war on Iran, a war that has disrupted global supply chains, made oil prices skyrocket, and caused a great deal of economic hardship to people across the world. The war has led Iran to impose a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, a narrow waterway that connects the Persian Gulf with the Arabian Sea and accounts for a fifth of global oil and gas supplies. If the conflict prolongs and therefore the blockade goes on, many fear the world economy could slip into a recession, which is why lately the Strait of Hormuz has come to take the center stage of this conflict. Ironically, what started off as a war for regime change in Iran increasingly appears to be turning into a battle for the Strait of Hormuz. In this edition of Tracking Trend, we take a closer look at what is happening there and what does it mean for the rest of the world. But before we do that, my request as always, if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do so right away. Share this video with your friends and peers. Spread the word around. Iran now wants to take control of the Strait of Hormuz. Earlier this week, when US President Donald Trump said he was willing to talk peace with Iran and his administration sent out a 15-point proposal, Tehran rejected them. It instead revived its earlier demand for war reparations and sovereign rights over the Strait of Hormuz. Yesterday, which is Thursday, Bloomberg News reported that the Iranian parliament is working on a draft bill that would impose a fee on vessels seeking safe passage through the Strait of Hormuz. Separately, reports said that the Iranian government has communicated to the United Nations that it was not willing to let hostile ships pass through the Strait of Hormuz, and that it was also planning to introduce a fee based system for what it considered non hostile ships and non hostile vessels to get safe passage through this narrow waterway. If Iran succeeds in actually taking control of the Strait of Hormuz, if it actually succeeds in enforcing the law that it is planning to bring. Remember, earlier this week, when Donald Trump made his offer, he also said that Washington was willing to negotiate a deal with Iran for joint control over the Strait of Hormuz. Now, either that or what Iran contemplates now, if any of that is going to fructify, how is it going to look like? In fact, as we speak, Iran has started allowing some vessels to pass through the Strait of Hormuz. And there is an informal arrangement that has been put in place for this purpose. If Iran's control or any kind of joint control is to be formalized, it could, in some ways, mirror the practice that has already come into force over the past few days. So let's take a look at what is actually being done now, how it works out. So let's start by looking at how tankers now pass through the Strait of Hormuz. The first stage is that of any vessel that wants to pass through the Strait of Hormuz has to get vetted by IRGC. Now, before we go how that vetting process works, what Iran has also done, it has now said no vessel will pass through its normal earlier route. Most vessels, most ships actually pass through the middle part of this narrow channel. The graphic that we show here, the orange red line, that's what it refers to. That was the traditional route. Iran has changed that. It now insists that vessels that want to pass through the Strait of Hormuz must take a very different route. That route is between two tiny islands under Iran's control, which is called the Qasem Island and the Larak Island. And both are close to the Iranian coast to the north. Now, any vessel, that's where the green and yellow line that we have shows any vessel that wants to cross the Strait of Hormuz has to go through this narrow channel now. This channel is narrower than the narrow channel earlier they passed through. Now, how does the waiting process work? Operators must provide details about their vessel ownership, the cargo they are carrying, and the automatic identification system data to an intermediary designated by IRGC. Please note, neither Iran nor any of its official arm are coming to the front line. It's all done through a certain set of intermediaries. Once this data is submitted, they go off for background checks. IRGC checks whether there is any US linked ownership or Israeli ownership, whether the vessel is carrying any cargo for the US or Israel or any party associated with these two countries, or if there is an aggressor state flag atop the vessel. They are not allowed. Once it is satisfied that the vessel doesn't belong to any of these categories, then the negotiation around tolls start. What fee they have to pay? There is no one fee, as we learn. Once the toll is negotiated, finalized, and paid off, the IRGC gives a clearance through a radio message, the very high frequency VHF radio message, which is the frequency wave that is mostly used by FM radio channels. And through this video message, IRGC indicates a certain time window through which the vessel should pass through this channel and the very specific route it should take. When that is done, IRGC Navy physically identifies the tanker or the vessel, and then the vessel is allowed to move on. So, how are the tolls negotiated and paid? The tolls are paid either in cash or Chinese yuan or crypto. The crypto payment is made through a blockchain called the Tron network, operated by a Singapore based organization called the Tron Foundation. It has been in operation since 2017. Now, all this is done so that the transaction cannot be traced as to who the final beneficiary is. What do vessels get in exchange for the toll that they pay? There is no physical escort. In fact, protection means here that the threat is removed. Safety is guaranteed simply because the potential attacker has decided not to strike. That's how the system now works. Now, let's go over to see whose ships and vessels are allowed to pass through this channel. Now, let me at this point in time clarify that all this information that I'm sharing, they are not official. These are inputs that I have received from certain informed sources, journalist friends, business friends in the Middle East. But what I can say, by and large, they tally with what has been reported recently in credible international media. So let's come back to whose vessels are allowed to pass. What we know as of now, that countries that have been able to get their vessels through this channel include China, India, Pakistan, Turkey, Malaysia, and Bangladesh. There are also shadow fleets which are either carrying oil and gas to Russia or to Russia associated parties. There is no confirmation about that, but this is what is widely believed. Now, this is what you can call now has come to be the Hormuz Membership Club. How is the toll decided? There is no uniform fee. What we learn is that it's different from different countries. Sometimes it is negotiated government to government, sometimes it is negotiated private party to private party. If there is a reasonable amount of geopolitical goodwill or alignment that is there, the fee may be reduced, or sometimes there may not be any fee. What we learn, the Chinese vessels are not paying any fee. We do not know who else could be enjoying this privilege. We do not even know whether India has paid any money, and if it has, we don't know what kind of fee it has paid. But that's how this system has come into place. Now, why is it working? Why are more and more countries responding? And in time to come, if there is no early resolution, we will probably see this is, more and more countries are going to join because everybody wants oil and gas supplies that are stuck there to come out of it. Remember, there are almost 2,000 to 2,500 commercial vessels that are currently stranded in the Strait of Hormuz. Of these, there are more than 200 oil tankers. And what we know now, the vessels that have moved through are only in dozens. So in time to come, as patience runs out, countries, companies, businesses will be willing to pay this fee and get their vessels out. Now, who gets to pay what? Whether everybody who actually gets to get their vessel through is completely going to be at the discretion of IRGC. So why are people still preferring this arrangement or are going along with this arrangement? Simply speaking, there is a very new actuarial math that has come into play. Companies like Lloyd's of London, which is probably one of the largest international insurers for ships and maritime activities, has stopped giving any standard insurance to ships and vessels passing through this entire conflict-ridden region. Instead, it has now gone for what is called a work risk premium that can go up $5 million a vessel. But what is interesting is that even there, for most international insurers, they factor a probability of loss at 20%, which is pretty high. And therefore, consequently, the premium you have to pay goes up much more. Instead, if you are paying to IRGC, the probability of loss falls to 5%, which is why, in terms of actuarial math, this is making more sense than insurance obtained from international insurers, which is why perhaps some of the vessels find it absolutely fine to go along with. Now, that's kind of if now Iran's move to take control of Strait of Hormuz or Trump's proposal to have a joint control of the Strait of Hormuz, any of these take effect, you could have a system which might mirror something like what we have just explained to you. What does it mean? Of course, the immediate consequences that importing countries will be paying a premium on the price of oil and gas they negotiate with the exporting country. And that premium is going to go to Iran, scoffers, or as if Trump succeeds in his plan of having a joint control, it will probably go into the coffers of all those parties who will be exercising this joint control, the America included. Now that's just an economic consequence that one can see. But what is the bigger picture? The bigger picture is rather worrying. The bigger picture is a matter of serious concern. The America and Israel's war on Iran, therefore, is nothing like a classical colonial style war over resources that we have seen in the past. Nor is it an ideological driven quest for achieving a greater Israel. Rather, the Iranian imbroglio is indicative of a new geography that seems to be taking shape around the idea of political rent. Controlling the Strait of Hormuz, intended or otherwise, thus has increasingly begun to appear as the real price of this war. Even if peace is restored in the weeks to come, it is highly unlikely that the Strait of Hormuz will return to being a global commons. Instead, we may witness a new geopolitical arrangement in which navigation through the Hormuz will be dependent on paying off a single or a set of gatekeepers. In other words, if we combine this development with what we have been seeing in the name of Trumpism over the past 2 years, it is evident that the era of globalization that thrived on free movement, open access, open borders, and global commons may be coming to an end, if not ended already. That is all for today. Stay with us, keep coming back to us. And if you have liked our conversation, please like it, share it with your friends and peers. And if you haven't subscribed, do so